the forum. I think the sound is good. It's actually not that often that we have people in our planning department address us, and I think that's very, very good indeed. I can't say I know Junfeng very well, although over a couple of years we've had some contact around GIS and transportation issues, and strange theories that I've had in that regard. Next week there's no Center Forum, but what's next week? Secret Life of Billings, okay, which will be up in the library upstairs on Thursday afternoon and Friday afternoon, and other sorts of events in between. So you're all invited. Please come.
All classes at school are canceled so that they can go. Right?
Well, this is an unusually intellectually curious group, and these are not average students. All right, guys. So let me introduce Junfeng. Junfeng Jiao has the equivalent of several PhDs from what I can see here. You only have one PhD? He has 3 master's degrees. He's an assistant professor in our CRP program, the director of the Urban Information Lab. His research focuses on healthy community planning and design. He received his PhD in urban design and planning from the University of Washington, and 3 master's degrees, one in transportation engineering from University of Washington, one in geographic information systems from University of Twente in Netherlands, and one in architecture from Wuhan University in China. So I think that's at least 2 PhDs right there, not 3. He's published over 25 academic papers and book chapters in different peer-reviewed journals, such as the American Journal of Public Health, Preventive Medicine Reports, Nutrition and Diabetes. This is going to be good. International Journal of Obesity. What do I know about that? Journal of Transport and Land Use, Journal of Public Transportation, and Research Record, Journal of Transport and Health. So, in general, I think there's no one more expert anywhere in our faculty on GIS, transportation, the influence on community, and I think we're going to see a live example today. Junfeng, thank you so much for coming to speak to us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Again, my name is Junfeng.
You don't have to worry about it.
Okay. It's my pleasure to come to talk with you guys. As Michael mentioned, I have come from a design background, and later on it became interested in the quantitative method. So today I'm going to bring you a talk about how we combine quantitative method to design questions. So the topic is streetscape and their pedestrian activities. So it's a collaboration between myself and Professor Yun Chen, who is urban design professor in Tongji University in China. So we actually started one of the busiest streets in China, Huaihai Road. So you will learn more about this research very soon. So we all know public street has 3 or more major functions. The first function is public street is transportation media. So we drive, we walk, we bicycle on public streets. Second part, public street serve as a trade form. So we sell and buy different stuff on public streets. The third function is public street serve as a public space. So people interact, people watching, people looking each other, people talk each other on public street. So for this research, I'm really focused on the third and the second part. How do we design a street to accommodate different purpose for public interactions? So previously, most street designs originated or channeled to automobiles. We have a large, wide street, and people find it very inconvenient to cross street or use that in our cities. Recently, there's a movement trying to change some corners or some patches or some small areas on street to a pocket park. to accommodate pedestrian need, to make it more pedestrian friendly and make it more interesting for our human beings, because we are the user of ultimate user for the city or for the street. It's not an automobile or bus. So street has to be designed for us, work for us, and for us. So follow this trend, there's many detailed design guideline or research on street design or streetscape design. So I won't go in detail about this. Then we will just follow directly to my research question. I do want to mention one thing. I take a literature review of these different design guidelines. There is very limited quantitative support to support the author's argument why the sidewalk should be this wide and why the sidewalk should be that long. So I want to provide some inside information to this part. So how streetscape design will affect pedestrian activities. My interest is basically healthy community design and planning, working as a major part of my research. When you walk on the street, you basically interact the building on the ground floor. You only can see the ground floor facade. And also you touch the sidewalks. So two dimensions in this research will be sidewalk and ground floor. So how do we design sidewalk? And how do we design the ground floor? I think it's very important for us to give us some friendly pedestrian feelings. This is my research question. So the case study area. So we select Shanghai, which is the largest city in China. So for some of you haven't been there, so Shanghai is located on the east side of China. So we can show you the different. It's a hub for high-speed rail, also the hub for business center of China. It's the largest subway system based on their miles. So you can see the network of subway system. So for our study area, Huaihai Road is located in the heart of the Shanghai. So this is the CBD area, and this is the Huangpu River. So this is the Huaihailu area. Actually, most of this area used to be French concession in the early 20th centuries. So now it's developed into one of the busiest street in China. So this is some picture about what it look like. So you have this is basically the entrance to the street, and you have also some middle-rise building, and there's some different shops in a different section. This picture might give you a better information about this street. So we have a 3.5 mile long street. We have 3 subway stations, and you have a different high-end shopping area and also different high-end hotels. This is not a regular street. This is kind of like Shanghai's 5th Avenue or Avenue de Champaign Avenue of Paris. So again, so this is a 3.4 mile long. We have 17 different sections, and the average width is 5 lane, equal to 50 feet without sidewalks. And average segment length is 330 feet to 660 feet. This is our studied segment. The total length of this red area, 1.5 miles. So we basically trying to understand how the different streetscape design will affect pedestrian activities in this 1.5 mile segment. To further explain the situation of our select segment, this is a picture of their ground floor. As I mentioned earlier, as a pedestrian, you basically only interact with the ground floor facade, also interact with the sidewalks. So you can see some of them are mixed-use, commercial, residential, This is mostly commercial. This is a residential, high-end condos. This is a most commercial, mostly commercial. So you get some impression about the facade of the different segments. Then the second part of our research is a sidewalk width. So basically, from this figure and ground map, you can see the average sidewalk width compared to the facade or the building segment. So this is our 17 segment. So we're trying to, again, use these two dimensions to explain people's working behavior on this street. So how do we exactly do that? We decompose the sidewalk in 4 different parts: curb zone, furnished zone, pedestrian clear way, and front zone. This is 4 independent variables we will examine in sidewalk dimension. For ground floor, we measure ground floor by 3 different index. Shopping unit density, basically how many units of shops located within that area. Function density, how many different functions located in that segment. Transparency, when you walk a street, you will notice some facade 100% transparent. Basically means they are glass. Some of just walls. So we measure them based on their transparency level. Walls, showing windows, glass windows, glass doors. So basically, we characterize in 4 categories. So these 7 independent variables will be used to explain our pedestrian activity on this street. The first graph basically explains the distribution of the sidewalk width in the different segments. You can see in the segment 10 to segment 14, you have a high frontage zones. Also, you have very high frontage zone in segment 17, and you have a different distribution. Just to refresh, so you can see the different segmentation of our sidewalk. In the second map, I will show you the density of different segments. This segment 1 is clearly commercial oriented, high density of shops. This segment 3 to 7 also very high commercial oriented. Section 9 is also very commercial oriented, and you followed by mixed use residential, condos, and commercial. And you can see the different function density. From this, you can see, again, segment 9 is very diversified. You have different type of shops located in that segment. And also you change to the more unique or homogeneous segment when you move along. And for this transparency, you can see segment 1 is very transparent. It's commercial oriented segment. Then commercial oriented, also commercial oriented. Then you become more residential oriented and mixed use. So basically, from this values, you will see the different land use or function change on the first floor. Because this research is trying to understand how pedestrian activity relate to different index, so we decompose pedestrian activity in 8 different types: shopping, window shopping, working, shopping, sitting, exercises, playing, culture, event. So we basically measured people's activity based on these 8 different classifications, just as we did to measure different units of the shop, different function of the shops. When we add this 8 activity up, we get a total activity density on the different segments. I apologize if you cannot see very detailed index, but this is a distribution of different function happened within 24 hours on any given segment. You can see segment 1 is very diversified. Segment 3, 4, 6, 7 is all commercial oriented segments. They have a lot of different activities going on. And when you move to more residential or mixed use, the activity level or energy level die down. You can see the percentage of different activities. This basically tells you the distribution of pedestrian activity on different segments. To make it easier for you to understand, we connect this index to figure and ground map for you to see what type of activity actually happened on what type of segment. You can see this is a very commercial oriented segment. This is our segment 1, 2, 3. Then we diverse to more mixed use, and also we pick up to some high level commercial activity segment. You can see from their dimensions, they are very large buildings. So they're like a shopping mall or shopping centers. And we enter to a mixed use development, follow to the section. And then you can see for the section 17, there's a lot of the energy level die down. So you have less activity going on in this part of the segment. So basically, you can imagine when we enter this street, we first enter to a very high level commercial street. Then we move to mixed use street. Then we move to more residential oriented street. Then we built regression models. We're trying to use regression model understand how the different values relate to different activities. This is our dependent variable. We can use this for total activity level, which is all 8 type of activity add up, how many minutes or how many hours of activity happened on that segment. Then this will be our independent variable. Remember, we measured Sidework, also we measured ground floor. So this will be our independent variable. For example, this will be the width of front zone, and this will be the transparency of the facade, and this will be the density of the shops. This will be density of the functions. Use this model, we're trying to understand how different design feature is related to any specific activities. And again, we can decompose this Y into different activities: window shopping, culture watching, or actual shopping activities. Again, this is probably clear. So the first 4 are space factors of each segment. And we also introduce the different time information to the model to better explain the activities. And we can replace the first 4 as a different transparency measure and also keep the time stamp to better explain activities. Okay, this is the result. So we basically highlighted very significant independent variable for any given commercial activities. Transparency of the ground floor is positively related to commercial watching. So basically, it's understandable when you have a lot of glass, people are likely to watch window shopping. Why width of sidewalk is negatively correlated with culture watching. Also, the shopping unit density is positively correlated with the culture stop. Basically, if you have a lot of different stores, people are likely to stop just watching around. So I want to point out, actually, it's not the wider of the sidewalk, the better. According to this model, the width of sidewalk is negatively correlated with commercial watching. Also, the width of sidewalk is negatively correlated with total activities. Again, this is the first analysis of our model. So,
could you go back?
Yes.
One more time?
Yeah.
So the highest negative correlation is transparency and other staining.
Yes.
What does that mean, other staining?
Other stains, basically, if you look at the graphics, this is okay. So this is nothing related to this different ad. This is other stains not part of this ad activity. So I don't know how to classify. So my co-author and I say just other stains.
It says other kinds of stopping, maybe?
Yes, other kind of stopping is not window shopping or just they just sit there or
just standing.
Just yeah, it's
admiring the architecture.
It's a possible. Yes, exactly. Yes, that's right.
Okay, we're on board now.
Our meditation in front of famous architecture. So anyway, so this is
But it's negative. That's cool.
negative, right?
So no glass. You shouldn't use transparency if you want people to stand there.
Right. So this is a negative correlated, as Michael pointed out.
Okay.
So this is a preliminary result, and I'm sure we can add a lot of information to better explain that. But this is what we get from first card. So how do we exactly design the width of sidewalk? This is the regression model for total activity and the width of front edge zones. So basically, based on this model, we recommend to large streets or major street like Fifth Avenue or Michigan Avenue, the sidewalk should be 0.75 meter to almost 6 meter. That means from 3 feet to 18 feet wide for frontage zones. And for the commercial activity, the frontage zone, if you want to only promote commercial activities, the frontage zone will be like 0.75 to 2 meters. If you only want to design a commercial street without people watching or without other activity going on. If you want to promote non-commercial activities, basically this is the width of frontage zone is not correlated with the non-commercial activities. So to summarize up, the width of the wider the width of sidewalk, the less activity on the sidewalk. So if you create a very, very wide sidewalk, basically people are less likely to use it on commercial street at least. The proper range will be 3 feet to 6 feet. Shop unit density. How many unit different shops will be allowed to attract total activities? And how many different units will be allowed to promote commercial activities? Based on this model, 7 units per 100 meter will be ideal. That's 7 units per 300 feet. The higher shop unit density of ground floor, the more activities, but it's not to the extreme. The ideal situation is 7 units per 100 meter. Again, the unit density is not correlated with non-commercial activities. Function density. The higher the function density of the ground floor, the more activities. Among all different functions, the function related to the food is most popular. This may be culture related, but this is some result we get. And also I want to point out the function density is not very highly correlated to non-commercial activities, but the function density is very correlated to commercial activities. So again, if you want to design a pure commercial street, you want to have more functions per segment. Transparency. The higher the transparency of ground floor, the more activity generally. A proper range will be 63 for commercial activities. If you want to design pure commercial activities, non-window shopping commercial activities, basically you want to keep the ground floor 63% transparent. If you have too much transparency, people will just stand there, just watch without actually doing the shopping. But if you very like a 0% transparent, people just walk by. So this is a model telling us 63%.
I can't wait to be on the next review.
Okay, so this is the conclusion of our research. So we have 4 type major functions: sidewalk width, transparency, function density, shop unit density. Sidewalk width basically is related to all activities. Transparency is major related to the commercial watching, commercial activities, or cultural watching activity. Function density also related to the commercial shopping activity and the culture stop activity. Shop unit density is only related to culture stands. So this is a recommendation if we want to use that to design a Fifth Avenue again. So the ideal width of sidewalk is 6 meters, so basically equal to 18 feet. And the recommended transparency is 62 to 63 on the ground floor. Recommended shop unit density on ground floor is 7 units per 100 meter, which means 7 units per 300 feet. Of course, other factors will influence pedestrians' activity on street, such as vehicle flow, street facility, the purpose of pedestrian. So we did not take into consideration of these different factors. This will be for the future study. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Junfeng. Let's hear some questions. We have a good amount of time for debate and discussion. Go ahead, and then we'll do you. Ladies first.
How long do you take to measure all the activities?
So we actually sent out our research team on the May 2012 and also October 2012. So for each observation, we run observation for 7 weeks, so 7 days for each segment. Then basically we move to the next segment, we move to the next segment. And for each observation day, we will basically stand there for from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Then we will also randomly observe peak hours in the night, like 10 p.m. or 12 p.m. So basically, simply answer your questions, every segment we observe 7 days, 12 hours for each day.
I appreciate that you mentioned early on that there wasn't a whole lot of math sometimes behind the guidelines that we have for urban design already. In particular for America, your results here, though in another country, of course, juxtapose the dominant transportation level of service for pedestrians, which would say that we need a certain amount of space around an individual, and that's a good thing. And so this, of course, would change that. Are there any similar guidelines in China that this might inform specifically?
So this research, actually, the local government commissioned to do this research because they're trying to, when they make their presentation, the government official always ask why you design this way, why it's not wider or why shorter. So basically, this probably will come into as a form-based code. Say if you design based on this volume, you cannot wider than this, you cannot smaller than that. So probably will be in a code. Good question.
What would you say about the cultural differences, perhaps between maybe China and France and the US?
That's a very good question. So basically, there's a lot of unexplained activities on the street. So people just, we observed many people just stand there, do nothing, and maybe just we cannot classify, as Michael pointed out, other activities. Maybe I will expect less such activities in the US or maybe in the European countries. Definitely culture will play a major role how people use the street, especially when they use the street as a public space. I think they all use the street as a shopping, media, or transportation route. But when you trying to measure how people use the street as a public space for interactions, culture will play a major role. Thank you.
What would be your observations about the use of handheld mobile devices?
Everybody uses it.
In 2012 as well?
Not in 2012. Sorry, in 2012 it's like 2 out of 10 people will use that, just doing that. But nowadays everybody uses it.
Right. So do you think that will influence the data if you did it now?
Yes,
Lots
I
of
think
people stopping,
that's
standing,
crashing.
walking into each other.
that's a good observation. I think that will affect the distribution of different activities. Maybe more stopping activities, less window shopping activities. And I also noticed when the mobile devices people pick up or the online shopping pick up, there's less shopping activities going on in the major street and less window shopping activities going on. So basically, people replace window shopping or physical shopping by online shopping.
So if you should go and do the same study now.
Yes.
Really, just the same.
Yes.
A replication in a way.
Yeah, trying to see how their online or social media affect people's activity in the public space. Yeah. Yes.
One of the graphs showed that the pedestrian clear way kind of stayed constant no matter what the width was. I think it was one of the earlier ones. It's back.
And that direction?
To the beginning.
Oh, to the beginning.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, one.
Oh,
Top
so,
one. The one you just were showing?
this one?
No. The one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. This
That
one.
Top left.
The width of sidewalk, right? The green.
Oh, yeah.
Why? So, why do you think that occurs? And then, if that's the case, how can we use that information to design like keeping sidewalks mobile? Is it just like super highways form, and people just will go into the grid of it, or is it something that has to do with how people walk in Shanghai?
First, I have to point out this is not they're very stable. So actually, you can see the change, a little bit of changes.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's between 2 and 4 almost.
Yeah, between 2 and 4, there's still some changes.
Yeah.
But anyway, to go
Not as
back.
much as frontage.
Yeah, not exactly. It's I would think about this related to the government zoning for the street. So basically, I would assume some underlying guideline on the street design in this segment is going on. That's why it's uh,
I feel like that's a very good observation because it
you
seems
look
to
at
me,
square signal.
yeah, that curb zone, furnishing zone, and pedestrian clearway, it's pretty constant right along.
Yes.
People are going to take up a certain amount of width to do walking. But as the thing gets to be more residential and mixed use,
Yep.
the frontage zone goes up.
Yes. So
Uh,
more like people watching activity or cultural activity going on, we were in this residential zone. So basically, people were like play chess or play Go on this frontage. They will occupy this space.
so did you have a measure of the density of people? Like if I said the frontage zone is 17, does that mean, was it empty?
Um.
Huge frontage zone.
Yeah, just below density.
Function density is very tiny.
Yeah.
The
So
frontage zone is huge. So now I'm imagining just a few people on the street and just empty plazas.
But as opposed to the one just before where there was a fairly high density and a fairly large
yes,
Yeah.
16.
for the 16, yes.
To me, that starts to suggest that there might be other factors that weigh into this not insignificantly. And, I don't know much about this kind of thing myself, but when I think about some of the kind of designers that work with, I don't know, the Domain or these kinds of very successful places, there's a intense study of nature of the shop, about the relative relationship of like restaurants to other kinds of shops, or the shops that have people coming and going very quickly, or the ones that kind of swallow them up for a long time, and then the kind of nature of the facades, like how like it's not just transparency or not, but it's like how much one sees into it or how intriguing they are, and then that seems combined with the front, what you call it, the furnishing zone, with like how dense the trees are, or how easy it is to see through these things from the other side of the street. People kind of gain interest, and I just wonder where all do these things does this kind of information just get layered on top of the study in a subsequent study, or is it discounted?
We did not count that information, like their perception of their street facade or their different characteristics you just mentioned of different facade. This might explain why this um, street 17 is quite interesting. I was thinking if you look at this one, probably helpful because basically this is like a large mall buildings. If you look at this one, like and this is like I don't know exactly what building is located on this segment 17, but to me it's, if I remember correctly, it's a large hotel and a shopping mall combined on this segment. So
Those are the ones that have a circulation system that's independent of the street.
independent street also is very major, like just one type of functions.
It just seems like it's very hard to draw a conclusion about, like, I would say 17, but it's not, it doesn't seem like it's dependent necessarily on the width of the street. It has to do with the way the building relates to the street. If it has an independent circulation system, or unlike some of the other ones where actually you go from one thing to the next being on the street.
Right. So that's, yeah, Kevin, that's a very good question. I think if I included the land use combination of different shop type within a different segment, maybe better explain this result.
Thanks for the presentation. I think I was thinking about the cultural differences also as well with the US, and I think this project addresses a lot of the problem of like urban design in China that tends to design very wide avenue, very wide sidewalks, everything. Like the new city in China is over chaos, like pedestrian transit. While here in the United States, it's kind of a different problem because here the street, I think streets have a nice kind of proportion, but the space is primarily consumed by the car circulation. So sidewalks are very small. So it would be nice for here if you compare to Austin, that probably the same place in Austin would be 6th Street.
Congress Avenue. Congress.
Well, Congress is a problem because Congress actually has like a probably 7 meters, like the ideal sidewalk, and you don't have commercial activity. It's not attracting any commercial activity at all. So it's kind of a paradigm. But the one that is similar to the case of Waihailu is 6th Street because it's like it's very commercial, like there's people walking. I think there the relationship. I think the relationship of the width is curvy linear. It's not like totally negative. Because at some point when the sidewalk starts to be too narrow, people are disencouraged to walk there, and people will find it like it's like the level of service. You go sometimes need to space. So I think that's the problem in 6th Street because 6th Street has a I don't know how much would be the width, but in meters would be like 3 or something like that. So it will be a powerful. You can with this kind of research, you could get a powerful argument for widening this sidewalk because that's. Well, I think there is a project in the city of Austin was to do it, but the owners of the bars are rejecting this kind of intervention because it will take away the parking. So yeah, I think it can be a very powerful tool, like to like certain like more specific place service of this kind.
I just wanted to follow up what I was saying before, but
Yeah.
what I'm wondering is like I'm from New York, and like, there's a lot of times where like you show the Madison Avenue pedestrianized area or Madison Park. So like there, for example, I used to work around there. They made that like green space, but people won't walk in it. They'll stay on the sidewalk. So like, why does that occur? Like, no matter what, even if you make it green, like people will stay
away
from it. Like, did you come across any type of like trend as to why even when there's all this push to get people to walk somewhere else, they'll stay on the sidewalk?
That's a very good question. I think if I understand correctly, so you cannot just build an island of green or island of a park to attract people to use it. You have to build a system for people to from one part to another part. So you just also it's maybe related to the surrounding building environment. I would think that play a major role. So if it's the function of the surrounding buildings, if you put like a neighborhood park in middle of nowhere or like all the buildings very busy, so I think people will not use that just because what is surrounding it. So this is if I can give some suggestion when we design the green space, we have to design in a system, also have to consider the surrounding land use type around the green space. If we just neglected that, people will not use that.
Shame not to have Sinclair here.
Yeah.
Sinclair Black, one of the faculty members, was I think one of the primary authors of the Great Streets program in Austin.
Right.
That comes from a very different perspective that suggested very wide very wide sidewalks.
Well, 2nd Street is his.
But the success of that, I think, in a large part is its programming too. Like I don't know how many kind of restaurants and things with big kind of terraces were on. I didn't see them in the photographs. I missed them. But it seems like the dimensions the large dimensions work particularly well when you have a restaurant that spills onto a fairly deep patio, and then has a fairly straightforward, what do you call it, a walking area.
So in the frontage zone, this will be like most of them will have a patio and use this kind of stuff.
Right, but the very deep ones, I don't know how it worked in your survey on that street, but when I think about the example of the States, or service states here, where that works quite well when it's very wide is often when you have a shop that kind of takes over that.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we also noticed that like when we do the survey, so when you very attractive destination will be restaurant. So in all the 17 segments, if you have a restaurant, basically it will attract almost twice of pedestrian activity to that destination. And I think For your question, so the 17 actually is like, now I remember it's a large hotel plus commercial mall. So basically, you have a lot of clearance in front of building, but it is not allow you just to sit there to do some activities. Yes, yeah.
I think the more abstract question is, in medicine there are a lot of drugs which doctors and researchers don't know how they work. Just like by action, they just know that if you take this, this will happen. And they do research that links effectiveness to dosage.
Yes.
And they look to see if there's side effects. But if you really ask what's going on at the molecular level in the brain or in the, it's like, we don't know. It seems to work and it doesn't hurt. So we do it. And so for designers, looking at this kind of data feels roughly the same.
Yes,
like we take the temperature,
yeah,
we take the pulse,
right,
and then we create a model,
right.
in which if we can replicate the temperature and the pulse and the width and the,
I totally
then we just
understand.
it's going to work. But the curiosity is always why, no? Why?
Yeah,
Why?
I also.
So how do you feel in your own research about all the why questions that come up?
Yeah,
Are you just happy that it works?
No, it's like I totally agree with you, Michael. I feel like in my early days, I started design and this looks beautiful, this looks work, and then let's present that. Later on, I feel like why that is the case, so that I start to quantify them, to use GIS and use spatial analysis to quantify it. But some within social science, some of the factor is very hard for us to quantify. So that's why you see the explanation level is relatively low, like 30 to 40% of the 70% unknowns. We don't. In my research, if I can explain 30%, I'll be very happy. There,
Right.
but I will keep digging into why the questions.
That's why you need the qualitative part. Like you need to ask the people, like.
Well, the qualitative just opens up another round of quantitative. It just tells you, right? It just says we can't quantify this yet, but this is the area.
Right.
That ideally, I suppose, we could quantify. No?
We study, like, explore the possible ways why is this happening. Like, people tell you, yeah.
I mean, why do we like trees along the street? There's been countless attempts to put trees along Guadalupe Street. You know?
That's right.
I mean, if any place in this town needs a row of trees, right, for shade, it's wide enough, it would look great, have a kind of boulevard of trees, and
Cover
up some of the
ugly.
buildings. So, but the city has never gone for it, and I'm told that it's the objections are from the store owners. They don't want their signs covered. Which makes no sense at all, because there's no one who drives by looking for a sign to say, okay, let's stop here. It makes no sense whatsoever, but they don't want their signs covered up.
But it's the same, it's the same mentality. It's one of those truisms, one of those kind of general assumptions, like, it wasn't also until very recently that no developer would open up a speculative space, commercial space, without parking in front, because the belief was that no one would go there if they didn't see a parking spot available. And that has started to change with as the cities become denser. But I think it's the same kind of mentality. It's like it comes from this sort of thought that it's a strip mall, like kind of a city where you have to, everything is organized from the car. But I think that's a very real. It's a factor.
Does Shanghai have a homeless problem?
No. It's I think they just locking somewhere. They're not allowed to work on the street. Sorry to say that, but it's yeah.
Because that's another reason why we don't make our streets more hospitable. We don't do benches, we don't do trash cans, we don't do any place to sit. None of that.
Yeah.
So that leaves places like the drag a very hostile environment with everyone running through it as fast as possible and businesses going out of business.
Yeah,
So those are non-physical
that's right.
well, almost not physical.
That's
These things always seem very hard for me to kind of have faith in, especially when one starts to think about how they could be codified into codes without like a lot more data.
Yeah,
and the
agree.
hard data. It's always a dilemma for me because it always seems like the easy data is the one that ends up being so powerful because it's easy to collect. And one wonders about like all that other data, and then like you were saying, like does it make sense to then start to kind of compare to different areas that are doing, so one can start to see, is it really always width that comes up as a deciding factor? Because it might be. Or is it program, or is it like orientation and light, or and it just it seems like there are so many factors that like I appreciated the last 3 lines you said that it didn't consider these couple of things, but it seems like that would be a good list to try and be more exhaustive.
Yeah, like, do you have any ideas about the sunny side of the street or the shady side of the street?
That's a very good question, Michael. We trying to actually when we do that, we try to switch the summer and the winter, not like a spring and fall season. We're also trying to switch day and night. Also, we observed the both
morning and afternoon.
In morning and afternoon. Also, we observe the both side of activity. So the data actually is on both sides of the street, not just on one side. But I agree, on the sunny side, definitely more activities than the less sunny side.
In some climates, like here, actually, you would expect.
And what about north-south streets versus east-west streets?
This basically is, this is east-west street.
So there's one side of the street that's nearly always shady.
Yes.
Well, especially when you're shopping, like generally afternoon vacation.
Yes, again, I think it's a lot of included unquantifiable variables can affect people's behavior. I think it's a good start to start somewhere.
If there are no more questions, are there? Comments? Directions for future research? Where do I sign?
Well, I love that somebody's trying to quantify this stuff.
Yeah,
it's like the data is so valuable. So I mean, I hope there are like teams of people that you're training that will go and do all the other data too. Because I feel like it becomes valuable when you have a lot. It's hard when you don't.
All right, Junfeng, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.